Hey guys, this week at Snapshot we talked about how God can change anger to forgiveness. We've been in a series called Redemptive Imagination where we've been talking about how God wants to redeem things, bring things back, buy them back to himself and use them for his purposes, right? Not let the world be completely ravaged by sin and its effects, but he wants to restore and renew things that seem broken to us, including ourselves and the world around us. So this week we talked about anger, something that the world has plenty of, something that we as Christians have plenty of, something I personally myself have way too much of, right? And how do we deal with that? What do we do with this anger that is around us that we feel? Like how are we supposed to deal with that? How can God redeem that? And here's where we're going to start. Peter comes up to Jesus and asks Jesus a question. And Peter here is trying to be a teacher's pet. And he's obviously gotten in a fight with one of the other disciples and wants to kind of talk to Jesus about it in a way. But he's still trying to be like the teacher's pet here. Peter comes to Jesus and asks, "Sir, how often should I forgive a brother who sins against me? 7 times?" And when he says 7 times, he's saying the perfect number, right? This number that Jewish people thought of as the perfect number. It's the number of days it took God to create. It meant perfection, right? If something was 7, it was perfect, it was whole, it was complete, right? So Peter here is trying to be really smart and pious and say, yeah, I should forgive him 7 times, right? Because that's the perfect number, but this guy's really annoying me, right? And Jesus comes back and says, no, 70 times 7. Now, is Jesus saying 499 times? Is that what he's saying? No, he's not saying keep track of that. He's doubling down on what Peter did, right? He's playing on words, and Peter, I'm sure, got it right away. Peter's like 7 because that's the perfect number. Jesus is like, how about 7 and another 7, double perfect? Try that one, right? He's saying, no, Peter, forgive them as much as they need forgiven, because that's what I'm going to do, right? They hadn't yet seen Jesus raised from the dead. They didn't quite get the full grasp of what Jesus was doing then. He was trying to tell them, but they weren't quite getting it. But Jesus is laying the groundwork. And I'm sure Peter thought about this after Jesus came back from the dead and said, I came to forgive everyone's sins, whoever believes in me, no matter what, right? And Peter sees that, and this is a good bedrock and a good foundation for us to remember that we forgive people as often as they need to be forgiven, because we've been forgiven as often as we need to be forgiven, right? In Psalm 32, David writes this. Remember David, the guy who got another guy's wife pregnant and then didn't know what to do, so he got the guy killed in battle, right? Like that was his master plan. So David wasn't perfect. He wasn't just the guy who killed Goliath when he was little, or a guy who became king and wrote a bunch of songs. He did some bad stuff too, right? And this is a psalm that he wrote. What happiness for those whose guilt has been forgiven. You know something about guilt, right? What joys for those whose sins are covered over. What relief for those who have confessed their sins to God, and he has cleared their record. There was a time when I wouldn't admit what a sinner I was, but my dishonesty made me miserable and filled my days with frustration, right? David here saying, me not coming to God and just saying, God, I messed up, I made a mistake, I sinned against you, against these other people. It filled his days with frustration, right? We've all done that, right? Like if we've done something wrong and we just kind of try and act like it's not a big deal, but it kind of eats away at us, right? Like those decisions we make that when we do bad things and just kind of leave them there, it eats away at us on the inside. And David's saying that here in his psalm. He goes on to say in verses 4 through 5 of chapter 32, all day and all night your hand was heavy on me, talking about God, right? He could feel God. He felt like God was judging him and was angry at him. He says, my strength evaporated like water on a sunny day until I finally admitted my sins to you and stopped trying to hide them. I said to myself, I will confess them to the Lord, and you forgave me, exclamation point. All my guilt is gone. Right? This reminds me of a story. I didn't do anything like David, but when I was younger, I had a friend over and we were playing in the living room and we smashed this lamp that was in our living room. I mean, it was the thing that gave light to the entire room. That was it. And we broke it. And we were like, oh no. So we cleaned it up really well. And then we went outside, and then when my parents came home, I was like, I really don't want to tell you guys. You're going to get super mad because it's the lamp. And it's definitely there. Like they saw it. There's no way they didn't see it. And I was like, we broke the lamp because we were horsing around, and they're like, okay, thanks. Like, we'll we want a new lamp anyway. It was bad, right? And it was like this thing that was eating away at me because I was like, I kind of want to not pay attention to it. Like I really wish I could not pay attention to it, and I really wish I could just forget about it or lie about it or do something to cover it up, but it wouldn't have worked, right? So, but my parents said, "No, you're fine. We forgive. It's okay. Thanks for telling us." Like, and that's here what David is saying. God did the same thing for him. He confessed his sins to God, and God said, "I forgive you." Right? Like, thank you for coming forward and saying that. And that's what God is asking. He wants us to be open and honest. Because remember, God gets angry at sin. That's what is this about anger? God gets angry at sin. He says sin cannot be in his presence. It cannot be in his sight. So if we are covered or we're full of sin, he doesn't want us around him, right? It's like me having a disease and showing up to your door if I have Ebola and say, "Hey, let me in. I want to just, like put my hand on like your couch and pillows and just like kind of like hang out and like eat food from your fridge." Like, you're not going to let me do that, right? Because that's not safe. It's not good. And that's the exact way God views sin, right? But the amazing thing is Jesus can take that sin away from us and make us good in God's sight. And God is more than happy to let us in. After we've confessed and been forgiven. So, in Matthew chapter 6, Jesus says this: "Your heavenly Father will forgive you if you forgive those who sin against you. But if you refuse to forgive them, he will not forgive you." There's not enough time to talk about that, right? That's a lot. If we don't forgive other people, God's not going to forgive us. That's a really harsh and high standard, but I think God knows, right? Because Jesus here is saying, but again, before he died, but I'm going to die for you so you can be forgiven and you can be right in the sight of God, right? No matter what you do, if you call on me, God will forgive you, right? I'm taking your sin on. That's what Jesus said. He's like, so you shouldn't refuse to forgive other people in light of how much you've been forgiven. And here's this last verse pertaining to anger, which completely helped me a ton when I started becoming a Christian. I read this verse and I just read it a ton because I had a real problem with anger. And it says, it's in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 26 through 27. It says, "If you are angry, don't sin by nursing your grudge," right? Don't sit there and stew over it all night. It says, "Don't even let the sun go down with you still angry," right? Don't let the day end with you still fuming about something so you can run it through in your mind and make all these things happen, right? It's not good. He says, "Get over it quickly, for when you are angry, you give a mighty foothold to the devil," right? If you've ever been like climbing before, right, and they have those little footholds places or places to put your hands, right? Like, you know that there are some of those that once you finally get to that one, like it's a place where you can kind of just rest. Like there's a place where you can get your foot and you're not hanging and you're not using all your strength, right? And it makes you ready and it gives you energy to keep going and keep attacking the mountain to get to your goal. And here Paul is reminding us that we have an enemy, right? And he is trying to drag us down. And anytime we stay angry at someone or something, we are giving the devil a chance to let our minds run wild, to be angry at someone, to think less of people, to destroy relationships, to get his hooks into us and put ideas into us that are not healthy and not of God. And he's saying, anytime you stay angry, you're giving a foothold to your enemy. You're giving them a chance to rest, a chance to take another step in getting to his goal, which is to steal, kill, and destroy, right? So anger is a huge thing. And it's not just something like, oh yeah, you get angry. Like, how can we get rid of it in our lives? How can we deal with it? Because it's going to happen. I mean, it's not going to get rid of it, right? Like, we're going to get angry. People are going to do things to us. But like Jesus said, forgive people as often as they need forgiven, because that's what I'm going to do. Jesus died for everyone, no matter what they did. And God asks us to forgive people just like he's forgiven us. So remember that. Hope you guys have an awesome week. Catch you later.